Hello friends. Through the years working with children, every time I sat with them to read stories and tell bedtime stories to them, they will always ask me and beg me, "Oh Jojo, please, can you tell us stories about when you were a little girl?" And they wouldn't stop. They would keep asking. And every night or every time I read them a regular fairy tale, I had to end up telling them stories about my childhood. So that inspired me to tell you all and share with you all a series of short stories about a little girl named Mari, based on real life events that happened during my childhood. So come on, relax, crisscross applesauce, and join me on this journey, and I hope you enjoy it too. This is Mari, and Mari is 8 years old. And Mari lives in the beautiful tropical island of the Dominican Republic. There she lives in the capital city known as Santo Domingo. She lives there with her parents, whom she calls Papa and Mama. And she adores them, and they're very, very happy together. Until one day, Mari's parents came over to her and they told her, "Mari, we're going to go to New York City to try to make a better life for you and for us." That really, really saddened Mari a lot, but she understood. She knew that her parents only meant the best for them and for her. So she accepted that, and she was going to go live with her aunt and uncle back in the suburbs of Los Mameyes. So one day, Mari's parents, they hopped on a plane, and off they went, New York bound, until they could come back and get Mari to live with them again. So as Mari's parents went off to New York, Mari stayed with her aunt and uncle back in Los Mameyes. So Mari went to live with her aunt and uncle in Los Mameyes, which is a suburb of Santo Domingo. There she lived with her aunt Tia Cruz and her uncle Tio Man, who loved her so very, very much. Also waiting for Mari there were her 5 cousins, Josie and Junior, who were brother and sister, Jose, Carlito. Oh boy, Carlito was so accident prone. He broke every single bone of his body as he grew up. And Domingo, who was the oldest. And these 3, Carlito, Jose, and Domingo, they were brothers. And together, Mari, with her 5 cousins, embarked on a series of adventures and memories that they created together as children. Now, Mari's adventure began with her cousins every time they went to visit their abuelo for the summer, which is their grandfather, all the way out in the countryside, the hacienda, known as Campo Medina. There, they loved it. There was no electricity whatsoever there, but yet they loved it because their abuelo was so well known and everybody respected him. They would come to him for advice, and they would also come to him for food because he had acres and acres of land. He even went up to the mountains. He actually had land on the mountains where he raised the plátanos, which are the plantains, the yucas, the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, all kinds of vegetables he would raise. And every morning, Mari's abuelo would get up on his horse and actually go and gather those vegetables so he could bring back down to Mari and her cousins. Now, this is a picture of Mari's abuelo's house, the hacienda. It was made up of wood. He had a long passageway that led to the front of the house, made of like a picket fence. And they had a nice porch where they would sit there every morning and eat the mangoes, eat the grapefruits. They actually would go and climb the trees to go, and then when they gathered them, they would go and sit down and eat them in the terrace, in the patio right there. So did I tell you that there was no electricity whatsoever out in that little town? But yet, Mari and her cousins loved it because they knew they were going to have wonderful, wonderful adventures together. And this is an actual picture of what one of those haciendas looked like. Very much like Abuelo's hacienda. There, the children would sit down and eat and tell stories at night and play around right outside, right there. And they just loved it. It was wonderful. Now, Mari's abuelo had a horse, and his name was San Miguel, a beautiful white stallion. And only abuelo can ride him. Only the abuelo. So nobody else. But yet, Mari and her cousins love, and they would stare in awe every time Abuelo went to get his horse. And this is an actual picture of what he looks like. San Miguel, wonderful, beautiful horse that helped Mari's abuelo go up to the mountaintop to gather bananas, just like this one's right here, and bring it down with plátano, yuca, everything for the kids and the family to eat. It was wonderful, and they loved it. And something beautiful and magical will happen every time Mari's abuelo would call the horse by his name. He would jump up on his two hind legs as Mari's abuelo would call out, San Miguel! And the horse would come striding down over to him so that he could get him ready, so that they could go up to the mountains to gather all the vegetables to bring that back down so that Mari and her cousins and the family could all eat. It was like a wonderful sight for them to see every time Mari's abuelo would go to call out the horses by his name. At Mari's abuelo's house, there was this big old barrel in the back of the house that filled, every time it rained, it filled with rainwater. Most of the houses had that, and they used that to take a bath. Now, the children, they would love to take turns, and they would just get inside the barrel one at a time and take a turn and dunk in and just like come back out, and then the other ones turn and back and forth, and they just kept going around and around in a circle doing that throughout the day every time it rained. And they just they had so much fun playing in the rain. And this is an actual picture of how the barrel looks like. See the water, how it comes down through a pipe when it rains, just like that. And the children will take turn and just jump in it and jump back out, and then the next ones will jump in and jump back out. And it was so much fun that they did when they did that. Now Mari and her cousins would take this path every morning to go to the river so that they could bathe. It was a path made up of a barbed wire fence made of wood to protect them from falling. Remember, it was a mountain. They had to go up the mountain and down the mountain, real steep. So they had to follow this path, real long path, and they would go one behind each other, following Domingo. Domingo was the one in charge, the cousin in charge. So there was a lot of grass all around it. So they would take a stick, each of them would take a stick, and they would put it in the front of them to make sure that there were no snakes in the bushes. And that's how they would go down the river, following this path. And here's an actual picture of the path as they will go. You see? As they will go and follow. See the barbed wire, the fence? That was actually in a mountain, and they follow each other, walking all the way down till they got to the river. Step by step, they went barefoot to do that. And as Mari and her cousins near the river, they would stop to see if they could hear it. The minute they were able to hear the water flowing, they knew they were real close. So they would get up and get strength and start running to see who could get there faster. And as soon as they got to the river, this is the river, see? It was filled with rocks on the side, and there was a big rock in the middle. And they would jump in from this end and swim to the rock and climb the rock, and there they would sit and sunbathe and eat their snacks, and then they would jump back out again and go back to the other side. And they did that back and forth. They would jump and dive in and out and have fun. But again, always listening to their oldest cousin, Domingo. He was the one in charge. Whenever he said stop, everybody had to stop. There were rules to follow. And they really loved it. They had so much fun doing so. But on the days that the currents were real strong, the children could not get in the water. So they had to go back, all the way back home. After having such a long walk, they will have to go back home and come back another day when it was safe. And here's an actual picture of the river. See the river in Santo Domingo? They will go to this river, and this is a rock. They will swim across to get to this rock, and there they would sit and sunbathe and eat their snacks and have a lot of fun back and forth. See? That's the river right there. Beautiful, beautiful river. And this is a picture of the children playing in the river. See? That's how they did. There was no swimming pools over in the Campo, in Mari's abuelo's house. So they would just go to the river and play there and have a lot of fun. But always listening to Domingo. And that's it. See? They had so much fun. And every time after Mari and her cousins came back from the river, from swimming, they were so tired. They would come back at lunchtime and they would take a siesta. A siesta is what we call here a nap. And they would sleep the whole afternoon until they were able to get up again and start playing all over again and enjoy their time at Abuelo's house for the rest of the summer, having lots and lots of fun and creating lots and lots of memories together. Now, Mari and her cousins were a little bit afraid of the night. Why? Because, remember, there was no electricity, so it would be really, really dark outside. And why were they scared? Because there was no toilet inside the house. They had to go outside to an outhouse. Exactly, an outhouse out there in the dark. So before they went to bed, they all got together with oil lamps, similar to this one. And whoever didn't have one, they will also create and get jars and fill it with fireflies from outside. There were so many of them, hundreds of them. They will put them in the jar, close it, and use it to go over to the outhouse. And they all walk together, one by one, tippy-toeing outside, looking all around them, making sure there's no animals or anything coming towards them. So when one went inside, the other ones would stand guard outside. But one day, one of Mari's cousins decided to play a trick on her. While she was inside the outhouse, he went behind the outhouse and started making scratching sounds on the walls of the outhouse. And Mari got so scared, she just opened that door and dashed out of that outhouse, oh my goodness, like a flash, and going towards the house. And before she reached the house, she turned around because she heard all the children laughing. Her cousins were laughing at her. And she was so angry that she said, one of these days, I'm going to get you guys. And that's how they did it. But then they would go back and sit in the porch for a little while longer just to look at all the fireflies, what we call cucuyos, out there. And they would just watch them light up the night sky. And this is a picture of what the outhouse looked like. See? Right there, that's the outhouse. And this is an actual picture of an outhouse. See, it's like a little house, very scary looking kind of little thing there, outhouse. You see, let me make it sure. You got like, there you go. That is an outhouse. And that's why they were so scared of it. But they made sure that they were all together all the time and never were afraid when they were together. So make sure that you bundle up real good. They used to bundle up real good like this, and they will go to sleep always together, so they will never be afraid. So bye-bye. See you again soon.